it's something that you have spoken about, and it has impacted your life, especially after retirement, right? I mean, yes, of course, it
Yeah.
did. Yeah, it did during your cricketing days as well. Do you think it's just a continuation of that, and is it, it's part of this journey that you spoke about, where you kind of get over it and come to the other side?
Yeah, I think it's got to do with the mental health side for me, with the depression and um, ADHD as well. Like, it's just that concentration side of things and focus, and so all that together, I think, has an impact on the doubt. And it just depends on what mindset I'm in. I think just going through this winter, like I said, like not having much going on, like my mindset is probably at the lower end and a bit more negative. Whereas I felt like in the last couple of weeks, just getting myself ready for this India, being down at the
Mm.
training with the guys at the MMA, uh, and doing a little bit more stuff has definitely helped a lot for me. Got my confidence up. So yeah, I just need to be more aware. I think I said it earlier. I was talking about presence and being in the moment. I'm starting to talk about that a lot more and actually be more aware of it myself. So pull myself in if I'm starting to get a bit scrambled and starting to think
Mm.
about things going on and this and that. I'm just trying to pull myself together and just say, okay, I can't control all that right now. Let's just focus on what's in front of me, and that'll all take care of itself. I'll look after that later.
And is this itself, I mean, this, what you're doing right now, openly talking about how you feel, or what's going on in your head, is that itself almost part of the therapy? Is it therapeutic for you doing that?
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. It is good. Sometimes it's not, but most of the time it is. Most of the time, it feels good to be able to just release. Because one of the things I do, and probably a lot of males do, is bottle things up and you don't talk about it and let it sort of fester over time and until you explode or get frustrated and all those things. So one thing in recent times, I've definitely been very, very much more open and just, I guess, talkative to even just with my wife, just being able to say what's on my mind at the time, and it gets off my head, off my mind, and I can move on and not think about it. So I think that's something that I've learnt over the last probably 6 months, and something that I'm really looking forward to, like, improving. To be honest, like, I'm looking into different methods and different ways to improve myself um, as a person and just my mind, and just to keep it. Um, I think the big thing is, like I said, is being present. Like, it's been one thing that I struggled with a lot, even when I was playing. I think sometimes I was never present, sort of off thinking about different things, and it can happen when you're in the sporting world where you may not have a good performance, and you start thinking about different things. You start reading things, and your head starts to go crazy. And then next day it comes out, and you've got to be out there in the field. You've got to perform. You've got to be at your best. And if you're thinking about what someone said, or even just your own doubts that you have, it doesn't really. I think that's why I had a lot of that sort of roller coaster sort of journey, personally. But yeah, it wasn't until the last sort of part of my career where I had a bit more balance, a bit more understanding of my emotions. Definitely helped, and then yeah, post cricket has been another journey as well.
Do you think at all? I mean, if you were more in touch with how you feel, and more, I wouldn't say in control of your mental health, but just yeah, more connected with how you're feeling and what is going on in your head, your career would have been any different? Or, I mean, look, it's all in hindsight.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I think about that, and I don't think I want to change anything. Um, the word that you use there, connected, is quite a good one, I feel, as well. But yeah, I think, like, I gave it everything, so I can't sort of look back and go, oh, I wish I could have done this or that, or maybe I would have been better. Or I think for me, I'm very happy with how it all panned out. I don't have any regrets or any I don't think like that at all, which is good, which is a real positive for me, because if I sat there and was dwelling on my career and going, I wish I'd done this or done that, and then I think I'd be eating myself up. So all in hindsight, yeah, but I think for me to go forward now, I'm going in the right path, which is what I'm happy about, because I'm being more present. That's what I want to be about.
Why did you think you needed to kind of test yourself for that, or seek help or seek therapy for that?
That wasn't through anything I'd picked up. It was actually Jess had picked up a few things, like me not finishing tasks at home. Just like, I know it's probably it happens in a lot of households, but I'd find myself like starting one thing and then sort of messing things up. Like I'd say, for instance, I'd clean out my closet. I'd start to pull things apart, right? Get all the clothes, whatever. And then I'd basically go, I'm done. Like, and I'd leave a pile of like crap everywhere. And then I'd move on to the next thing. And so that's what I was doing. And then she must have been doing a bit of research on it. And there was another thing that she used to pick up. I used to do a lot of tapping and play with the remote control for the TV. I'd do like little patterns on the remote, and she'd always notice that. So she started like doing all this research, and yeah, she said, I think you might have ADHD. I was like, what do you mean? Like, I'm not like hyper or anything like that. She goes, no, but there's the other side of it as well, where you do all these things, you don't finish this and that, blah, blah. My focus, like I'd often have conversations where I'd be in a conversation, but I'd be like pretty much zoned out. And I told her about it, and I was always zoning out. So that was another thing that had come up. So yeah, basically went in and saw a specialist, and I had to go see the doc first to go see the specialist, and yeah. Sorry, dropping out a little bit. Yeah, so I went and saw the specialist and took my report cards in, and yeah, like I said, I was always distracted at school. And the subjects that I was good at, it was sport. And the funny thing was, practically on the practical side of it, I'd get A's. When it came to the theory side, I'd get D's. I just didn't have the capacity to like focus, and because it was boring to me doing the theory side.
I actually read some really interesting research about ADHD and athletes. Apparently, there was this paper written just a few years ago in America where they say that around 20% of pro athletes at some point or the other have been diagnosed with ADHD. And there were the advantages and the disadvantages of that. But just before we get into it, you spoke a lot about staying in the present. Do you think now, like, once you did find out that you had ADHD, does that have anything to do with it?
It has a little bit, but I think so there's the ADHD when I was diagnosed was it was quite interesting because I looked at your report cards. And so I had to like dig up my old report cards, and everything was about being distracted. I was distracted doing this, was off doing that. So I was always distracted. Like I'd get to a point, if I didn't like something, I'd be switched on for 2 minutes and then I'd be off with the fairies. So unless it was something I really enjoyed, then I'd have a hyper focus. So that's what I had. I'm not a very sort of hyperactive person in general, but once it came to cricket, my hyper focus was like I had to like train so hard, like I had to do everything, like do my physio. If I was injured, I'd do my do all that stuff. Early on in my career, I didn't, but as I got on and learned how to look after myself, I got better. But I was so hyper focused on everything. So I think, yeah, I've heard stories of other like people in sports with similar sort of things. CEOs of big businesses with ADHD. and they just have that same sort of hyper focus. They're always working and going like 100%.
Yeah.
So I felt like I was at that point, like through my career. That's why I feel like I had my depression and the ADHD was all masked because of that, like the cricket, because I was just that focused. So yeah, I don't think, like I said, I don't think I would change anything. I don't think anything I could have done that I'm doing now that would have made anything better. Back when I was playing, I think if I was to take medication for ADHD, which I have, uh, it gives me a sort of a clearer focus and not so intense. If that makes sense. And I feel like I've used the medication just for like when I'm doing speaking gigs, so I'm a bit more structured. So it's definitely helpful for that. But yeah, I don't think it would have helped me with my cricket if I had medication. So yeah, I think it would have taken away that hyper focus that I needed, to be able to train hard and to be the best I could be.
Yeah, I
Hope that
mean,
makes sense.
no, it makes a lot of sense. No, absolutely. And it's almost like you wrote the paper that I read. It did not say Dr. Mitchell Johnson. Maybe it should have.
Well,
There's some of the names there, I mean, from Michael Jordan to Michael Phelps, they were all, at some point diagnosed with ADHD. And cricket's, it's a strange sport, right? It is, if you think about it, it is an individual sport which is played in a team sport environment. Like when the bowler is
yeah,
running in, the only act is the bowler running in and bowling. When the batter's hitting the ball, that's the only act, right? And
yeah.
so on and so forth. So do you think, in a way, it you benefited from that hyper focus, like when you were running into both?
Yeah, I thought you were going to go with something else then. To say
No,
that
take me there.
no, well, I was thinking about it when I did something recently with the ADHD stuff, some studies, and the sports that were more suited for ADHD was like table
Oh
tennis,
yes.
like fast sports, like hand-eye sports like that, where you have to make a decision like that.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that's why I was drawn to tennis when I was younger, possibly, because
Mm.
I played a lot of tennis growing up and I enjoyed it. So it seemed to maybe that really did suit me. Whereas cricket's not really, it's not a fast going game, but I guess when you're in the moment, I'm making a decision. Sometimes, I'm going to have to change my length or, um, so yeah, but it doesn't really match up, which is quite interesting. So I don't know how I made it work. Good question.
Look, they do say
Just
that
being competitive,
the one.
maybe I think is probably what got me through.
Hmm. Yeah, apart from the fact that you were just mean looking and you could scare batters when you
Yeah,
wanted to.
yeah,
They say that like ADHD helps in mastering short and intense bursts of attention. So I don't know if bowling six balls in an over or even bowling each delivery calls for intense bursts of action.
yeah.
I guess in some ways it does.
I guess I don't know. Well, yeah, it's another good question, but um, I, I guess I just made do with it. I think that competitive side of me just, um, yeah, just sort of got me through. Really, I don't really know, to be honest. This is a pretty good question. Be interesting, like to have a look at like if you could do like brain studies on that when I was like bowling, have all the things like electrodes on your head, and be interesting to see. But um, yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there was a few other guys that had ADHD as well around the team at times, but it's one of those things. I guess it was never really talked about, or yeah, even with the depression and stuff. Like I remember before I stopped playing with the Aussies, I remember being on an India tour, and I just remember like sort of I'd been feeling down. Like I'd spent a bit of time in my room and just wanted to get away from people. I was happy being alone, but then also not at the same time. Because it was that depression was like had kicked in, and I was just didn't really know what to do, how to deal with it. And I remember talking to a few of the boys about missing home and stuff like that. And I just, for some reason, I didn't think that anyone else missed home. I just felt like, I don't know what it was. And I started talking to the guys, and they're like, yeah, like I'm really missing home at the moment. And they started to open up, and it was actually really good having a conversation, like an honest conversation about, their personal sort of stuff and how they felt and things like that, because it wasn't something that we generally did. And I know when I first started, it wasn't something that was spoken about much. You sort of just got on with it, I guess. But I don't blame like the sport. I don't blame people in the sport for how they went about things. It was just the way it was. I think you build resilience that way as well. But I think you also need to be able to talk to your mates and see how they're feeling as well. So I hope that the guys are now doing a lot more of that, because it was something that was quite obvious to me when I was finishing, that everyone is going through the same stuff. Not necessarily depression, like I'm not saying that, but
Yeah.
just saying like they're missing home, and there's guys that don't deal with it very well. So it's just trying to be able to be supportive to them, and yeah.
No, look, you discovered this like towards pretty much the fag end of your career.
Yeah.
This would have been what, 2013, when you were in India
Probably,
playing
14,
ODIs.
yeah. Was it
Yeah.
13, 14?
Yeah, I think you were there, of course, for
We didn't
the
go fifth.
the homework gate series, which we will talk about in detail some
Yeah.
other day. Yeah, and
We'll
then
talk
you
about
had,
that.
yeah. That calls for an entire season, I guess. But just
Yes.
about like how you couldn't get your homework done. Maybe it had a lot to do with your report cards from back
Yeah,
in the day, like you said.
exactly. Well, that was the first thing I thought of. I was like, well, I couldn't do it because I actually almost got kicked out of the cricket academy because of not doing my homework as well. So, yeah, we can talk about this one later.
Wow. Okay. Now already, we can. We're looking at the next few episodes. You're just lining them up for me. Yeah. I mean, you spoke about
Yeah,
your
I'm
tennis.
just
I'm
full of
still
flair.
disappointed. No, I'm still disappointed that you never stuck your tongue out. I read that you were a Pete Sampras fan, but you know, you should have paid an ode to him in some form or the other. But maybe at
I
least
did.
when you were batting.
Well, I sort of did when I was batting. I guess I had the single. Well, when I played tennis, I had the single hand backhand like him, and the serve. Like I used to sort of do that little like
Yeah.
thing at the start. So, um, yeah, I didn't have the mini afro like him. He had like a little mini afro. I had the sort of the straight floppy hair. Very different in that way, but no, yeah, I know where I'm going with that.
That's good. We should you're talking to someone who never or struggles to stick to a point. So I'm good that, see, this is why we're doing this together, Mitch. Neither you nor I can stick to the point, which is fine. We can come back to it. That's what matters, is
Yeah,
the
perfect.
excuse
We
I've
can say what
used.
we want.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. It's your show. It's our show.
Exactly.
Another episode I can already think of is hair, right? I mean, you and I can just go on and on and on about like hair care, and it's important for people out there. I mean, you
Uh,
maintained your hair while you were out there in the hot sun. I had to do it in
That's
the
what
air
you
conditioned
think.
box.
I never did. I was definitely not into my hair care like you are. Or Shane Watson. Shane Watson he liked his hair. Brett Lee, he was another one. A couple of guys. Well, when I first went to we're talking about your hair, right? So when I first went to the cricket academy, when I was 17, I had not quite that length, but it was about to sort of my shoulders, maybe just past it. Had the big long undercut. I think I rocked up. I think I'd shaved it underneath as well. So I went full like, yeah, mad dog. But I remember turning up to the cricket academy, and a guy called Damien McKenzie. He's from Queensland, a good mate of mine, and I was rooming with him, and I rocked up with the long hair and I think it was a Slayer shirt, and he just looked at me and he was just like, "Whoa, who is this bloke?" And he told like the bloke, all his mates, he's like, he thought I was going to stab him. That's what he thought. He looked at me and goes, "This bloke's going to stab me." I was like, "Oh." I was the most plastic like kid. Like never going to stab anyone. But anyway, I ended up shaving my head. Or the boys shaved my head when I got to England for the Australian under-19 team. They shaved it, gave me a number 3 all over. So yeah, it was probably about 3 months, 2 or 3 months. Yeah, two months later, I think I team. So yeah, they shaved my head.
That's not cool at all. Like I do not like to
I
talk
was
about
okay with it. It was
shaving.
time to let it go. You obviously haven't got that memo.
No, no. I'm not going to England with a bunch of boys. Never. Yeah, I mean, look, the length has gone up and down, but it's always been long. It's funny that when I went to journalism school, it was just a 10-month course. I was still living in Mumbai, so the course was in Chennai. The best thing that happened to me was not journalism or me getting a job. That's where I met my wife. So, like,
Yeah,
so it all worked out well. The fact that I got a job and I'm doing this 15 years later, it's all right. I would have done
no,
something else. Not sure what,
it's a good
but
luck charm, like the mo.
oh, I like them all. There you go. Yeah. And I rocked up with nearly waist length hair. I had these weird beads I used to wear. I would only wear black t-shirts. Nobody would believe me when I say that. And everybody else, looked like a journalist
Yeah,
and who they came there wanting to become journalists, right, to change the world. And they would all look at me, and I remember one of those kids coming up to me at a party, one of those early parties, and saying, everybody's a little scared of you, right? They're not sure what to make of you. So I think, in a way, we made similar beginnings to our respective careers. Yeah.
there you go. I just grew up quicker.
Yeah, that is true. No, I'm
Always
not.
good, mate.
You're not tempting me into any boxing ring anytime soon. But just going back to what you were saying about having a chat with the younger players. And look,
Yep.
there's this machismo that comes with being this big nasty fast bowler, right? Like so. How much of a role did that play? I'm not saying a batter should be more comfortable talking about his or her feelings, but not only were you in this in setting where it was almost not okay to talk about your feelings, or no, not
Yep.
many did, and plus to boot that you had this reputation of being this, this guy who was supposed to be rough and tough.
Yeah, I, I think the guys always knew that I was a bit of a big softie anyway. Um, yeah, I don't think I was ever a nasty person off the field. Definitely different demeanour to what I was on the field. That white line fever comes out when you cross the line. Dale Steyn talks about it a bit as well. Like he's totally different to what he is on the field. So I was always, I think, I was always pretty happy to talk to guys about anything, and I just hope that I sort of came across that I was open to that kind of stuff as well. I guess where it sort of may have fallen down at times was just when I'd fall into my own trap of wanting to be alone, which can happen on tour when you just want that space because you are on top of each other. You're traveling together. You're playing together all the time. Everyone needs their own space, but sometimes I just probably just take it a little bit too far and then just sort of fall into my own little depression session, I guess. But which I didn't really understand it until after cricket. But no, I think, like I said, just I was always there for the boys if they needed to chat about anything. I always felt like I was a guy. I didn't have a lot to say, but when I tried to be more that leader by example with a lot of things, so maybe it was hard to talk to me at times because of that as well. But I don't know. I'm only going off what I sort of remember as well.
I mean, I'm really happy that it should be admired that you felt the need to not just worry about how you were feeling, but just check on the boys. Like being a senior member of the side
Yeah,
doesn't just mean that you're at mid off helping them set the field, but it
yeah,
means, like you said, to check on and yeah, like you said. Anyone can miss home, right? It doesn't need to be
yeah.
an elite sports person. It could be like if you don't, we go on tours as well as journalists. I know we tend to
Yeah.
miss home as well. So it's such a
I can imagine.
natural,
I
like,
don't know how. I don't know how you guys do it. Like like going over there and spending. You're not even playing the game. You're writing about it and you're watching it, and um, I think that was another reason why. Because I remember having the conversation with Shane Watson, and I think we spoke to Matty Hayden about this, about having these relationships with journos. Because I remember Haydos used to talk about trying to sit down and have like a coffee or have like breakfast with them at times, not all the time, but just pick moments where he felt like it was a good time to sit with them, because he had an understanding of what they were going through as well. Like, they're on tour as well. They're missing the families. They're away for a long time. And like I said, you're not playing cricket at all. So I don't know how on earth you can do it. But yeah, it's I mean, I've experienced it to a certain point now where I travelled to England and did some commentary there, and you have your good days and bad days, just like everyone else, because you have a bit of time. I know you got to write things, and you can take up a bit of time doing that, but then there's time to yourself, and you're like, what do you do? Like, you've got a couple of journos you might want to catch up with, maybe. If you're lucky, there might be a couple of decent ones.
It is interesting. The one important thing you did miss out on is we don't get paid as much as you guys either. So, and we don't get
See,
to
it
stay in
comes
the
to,
fancy hotels
see,
either.
hey, not about money, it's about enjoyment, the fun, and the can't play for the
Passion.
money.
Oh yeah,
Exactly.
passion. Joining the army. Like, tell me more about it. Like, was it something? Was there someone in the family who's in the military, or uh, someone you knew? How did that come about, and how close did you get to actually doing it?
Well, I say there wasn't anyone within. So a dad's side of the family, like mum's side, no. Dad's side, we were living with his great great grandfather for a short period of time, and I think his father may have been in the military. There was a picture up on the wall, so like World War One or something like that. I'm guessing. I can't be 100% sure, but it only sort of just came to me because people have asked me, "Oh, do you know anyone?" And it's only just been like a memory that's sort of come back to me. That I remember seeing that picture on the wall at the house. So, but apart from that, like the reason why I almost joined was in year 12 we had like the military, so we had the army, the air force, and the navy come into our schools, and
Oh,
they would try and recruit. So, um, everyone was like, "Oh, yeah, be a Top Gun pilot. Like, how good would that be?" Like, because obviously Top Gun was quite big, um, but then there was a few mates who were like, "No, they're going to join the army," and then yeah, like I think I don't know what sort of drew me to that. I think maybe the idea of being active and sort of learning how to shoot and things like that, and sort of being it's almost like cricket in some ways where you're told where to go, what to do. Um, in saying that, it's funny because now I don't like being told what to do, and I probably never really have in some ways. But when it's something that like I have a focus on, then I will do it. But so yeah, that was sort of me. Like 6 months out of high school, like I had the conversation with my dad to what I was going to do, and the army was like it was a pretty much it was looking that way. So, and then 2 weeks or so later, I went to the bowling camp where Dennis Lilly was at, and that sort of all kicked off my path. So people go, "You're very lucky," and I say, "Well, I still think like I'd, I still would have done it, like gone to the army, and I think I would have put everything into it, but." I am. No, I feel very like I was in the right place at the right time and had a lot of good people, like I said, around me that were pushing me to go to this camp for such a long time because they saw potential in me. So yeah, I was pretty stoked with it all. Like I remember going there and said like the long hair and like I think I had cricket. No, I didn't have cricket spikes, but I think I had my dad's golf spikes. That's right.
mm.
So had that, and then I remember bowling indoors to Lee Castledine,
Huh.
who played for Queensland, but also was on Survivor.
Very much so.
Don't know if he's been on anything else, but extremely fit guy. And I remember bowling to him in the indoor nets at the Gabba, and I hit, I think it was 140 in the indoor nets at 17 years of age. And I was
Yeah.
like, the funny thing was, I never thought I was quick. Like there was this kid that was at our school that played Clint Kelly, and he used to bowl so fast. And I was like, oh, so impressed with him, and I was like, man, he's so fast. And I'm like, oh, I used to think I was slow compared to him. Um, and I don't know, maybe I was at the time, and I just didn't see it. I don't know, but yeah, all the boys. Sort of after that, I went to the cricket academy after the camp with Dennis Lilly, the pace bowling camp, and then I went and bowled to a lot of the guys. Like it was Michael Clark, Sean Klingleffer, Damien McKenzie was down there, my new roommate. Vogsy, Adam Voges was on that
All
tour
right.
as well.
Yeah.
So I remember, bowling to the boys, and they're like, yeah, they thought I had some good pace. So, and being a left armer, just having that extra bit as well, being that angle across the right hander or into the left hander. So yeah, I thought it was a bit different. And Rod Marsh took a bit of a risk on me as well. And I played Australian under 19s not long after training with the boys. And yeah, so it was it was an interesting sort of journey to start with. And the path that I went on was very different, which is another thing I talk about with young kids, like when they come through and say, oh, what do we need to do? With their parents, and talk about like what path they need to go on. You need to be in the under 17s development squad and this and that. And it's like, no, you just need to be in the right place at the right time. Make sure you're doing all the hard work. Biggest thing for me is like everyone's path is different. You can go on a different journey. Like Matthew Hayden talks about it. He wasn't picked in the Australian under 19 team, but that made him work extra hard he used that disappointment and that, I guess, a bit of anger towards it. And he just used it to get better and better. And he got picked to play for Australia and played 100 test matches for his country. So everyone has a different path. So I think that's a real important message I try and get across as well.
Yeah, I mean, your path has been different from the very beginning, and it continues to remain varied. I don't even think you stick to one single path. It's like, yeah.
Oh,
No wonder you never.
it's all over the place. Yep, it's the life of
It's a good
a
thing.
sporting person. I think your path, you tend to change. Like I lost my contract at 23, I think it was, for Queensland. I had to work back, and then not long after that, I'm playing for Australia. So a year and a half later. So your path is always changing. It's just when you get knocked down, that's how you get up. It's an old saying, isn't it? Really, it's a bit cliched, but it's so true. It really is how you bounce back from disappointments um, and I guess your mindset. My mindset was I felt like I could play for Australia when I lost my contract for Queensland. I believed it that I could. I felt like I just needed time to be able to bowl because my back was a major issue, was having 4 stress fractures at such a young age, and I just thought, I just need to give it one more crack here, and I did all the work, and it was pretty much like you hear a lot of stories of sportsmen and even like CEOs and people that have been at the bottom and they've had to had all the disappointments and they've bounced back and they've got themselves up and been able to have great careers. So I think that's even now for me. Looking at it now, I'm on a different path, and like I'm having those times where I'm down, but I've always got to look to go forward, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is a very very unique beginning, a unique middle, and I'm looking forward as keenly as anyone else to see what lies ahead. Apart from the podcast, which will
Yeah.
accompany you wherever you go, that's for sure.
Yeah.
That's something we can guarantee.